Time for day 2 of Grand Prix Indianapolis 2012. Hello everyone, welcome to round 10 and day 2 of GP Indianapolis 2012. Rich Hagan, Sheldon Menery with you in the commentary box. And there you see Mr. Tom Martell of Team Channel Fireball and also other very high-level professional teams. Right, very connected. And there in the Indianapolis Colts attire, you see Michael Bernat, who had a Grand Prix top 8 as long ago as 2000. Sheldon, what's the matchup?
Tom Martell playing his Esper control deck. Again, we talked on the lead into the broadcast how Tom very, very happy with his deck. He thinks that Lingering Souls is the linchpin card that goes along in his deck. He's got the Stoneforge Mystics, the Snapcaster Mages, Vendalian Clicks, but he's just loving his Lingering Souls.
Mm-hmm. Other side of the table, Michael Bernat is playing High Tide, but along the way he's got some interesting bonus stuff. So things that you'd expect: Meditate, draw some cards; Pact to Negation, bit of counterspell backup; Turnabout, Time Spiral, Search, Brainstorm, Ponder. The key to the deck: Merchant Scroll searches up High Tide, gets an instant, you get High Tide, off you go, all your islands count for 2. Force of Will, Cunning Witch, get your singletons out of the sideboard. Preordain, and then, wait, what's this? 4 Explore. Not 2 Explores, but 4 Explores.
He wants to play into them. He wants to get those extra lands, get them early, and get rolling. Looks like we've got both players going to 6. Not the situation you really want to be in when you're the High Tide deck. You need numbers.
Yes. And we're away. Tom Martell will lead off with an honest-to-goodness dual land. You'll see plenty of them today. Bernat will have, I believe that's a Lorwyn island. He's not messing around with any of these alpha islands because I'm playing in Legacy. No, I'm going for the Lorwyn ones. So, kicks off with a Ponder. And you see a Turnabout at the front of his 3 there from Urza's Saga.
That's going down. He's not going to lead that till later.
So Turnabout will be the 3rd card in the pile.
It may not be 3 turns, but it's definitely going to need to be 3 draws down.
So Martell, with the mana open, we're still at the end of Bernat's turn, has the opportunity to cast Brainstorm at end of turn, which looks like exactly what he's going to do. Acadian Mask's version of Brainstorm?
Yes.
But Japanese. So he gets bonus points.
On the style front.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, not in the life game. That would be an interesting variant.
See, he puts 2 back. Probably just he's gonna fetch, and then can't see any reason not to drop the Stoneforge Mystic here.
And that's precisely what he does.
And you see he saved time by not shuffling in between.
Yeah.
Perfectly acceptable shortcut.
That's a shortcut, right? That's what they technically call it.
Yes, perfectly acceptable to save time. And you can see he's chosen the Batterskull. Quite honestly, Batterskull gets moving, puts Bernat on a very short clock.
Yes, whether it's short enough, that's the issue. It's all about the disruption, isn't it? Generally, because High Tide unmolested generally going to get there over pretty much any amount of creatures that are attempting to come online, wait a turn, untap, start hitting you.
Yes.
So it's all about disruption. Now Martell, we know, has 1 Force of Will in hand, plus the means to do stuff with it.
And he's just trying to Vindicate.
He's going to Ponder.
He knows what 2 of those cards are.
Looks like a Vendalian Click. He's card number 3. And his current thinking is...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that the Click sits 2nd, so he will draw into the first land, set up Click for next turn.
And you see what Tom did there. 3 cards that he's looking at, he kept distinctly separate from his hand, so there's no confusion, no potential penalties for drawing extra cards. Very cleanly played. See Jace the Mind Sculptor there in his hand.
And pass. And we can expect a Stoneforge activation sometime pretty soon. So another Brainstorm from Bernat.
No, he's going to draw that turnabout. So he's got Explore in his hand. Didn't see a source of green mana is in his grip.
But he has Scalding Tarn. And as you say, the Explorer on the right of shot as he's contemplating what to go back. Top 32 of Pro Tour Kobe back in 2006. That's his highest placed Pro Tour finish for Bernat. Martell, of course, made the top 8 in Paris last year.
And was at one point ranked world #1 in composite rating.
Oh, really? Okay.
Probably middle of 2011 or
Okay.
so. So interesting that Bernat fetched
A straight
a
island.
straight island as opposed to the tropical island with which he could play those explores in his hand. Is he leading to? He doesn't want. He certainly doesn't want Tom to know he's got something slightly techy.
Preordain. Let's scry for 2. And looks like one on the top, one on the bottom. So he draws. Much quieter atmosphere here early on Sunday morning. You're down to a couple of hundred people in the building, 157 playing round 1, and a few people starting the early drafts on the far side. Merchant Scroll. I'd like to go look for my High Tide, please. Probably. And there. Go and get Force of Will if you wanted.
And I think we saw Time Spiral already in Michael's hand.
Okay.
So all he needs to do is be able to have another land, squeeze off that Time Spiral, and he could be off to the races.
Oh, yes. So Martell, who began the game with end of turn action brainstorming on Bernat's turn, is now also at end of turn, where he seems to more or less exist, the end of Bernat's turn, puts Batterskull into play. The living weapon untaps and ready to rock and roll. So smashing in. Martell will gain some life, and that will not be relevant. Bernat will lose some life, and that may be.
During his draw step. So Bernat has drawn his card. Now Tom Martell is going to play that click. Now the triggered ability on click is when it comes into play.
Okay.
So
And enters the battlefield, as they say these days.
So he doesn't choose who he's going to click until he's sure it's going to resolve.
Right.
Bernat thinking very seriously about this because Tom knowing his hand is pretty significant.
Ooh, interesting. I'm going to respond with High Tide.
That's a blue hand right there, Rich.
Indeed. I'm very excited. Force of Will, Time Spiral,
Two Time Spirals.
Double Force. double force, double time spiral, turnabout, land, and that's why you get the float, because Bernat can turnabout with his 2 islands. That's 4 mana, that's turnabout, untap the 3 islands, that's 6,
and that's time spiral.
but
Of course, he can.
we're in draw step, aren't we?
Yes.
Time spiral sorcery.
Well, certainly yes. Not. I meant time spiral this turn.
Yeah. So
Not time spiral on the resolution. That high tide lasts for his entire turn.
that's right. Yeah.
Tom's really got to go deep into the tank here to.
The interesting thing is, I mean, as we know, he has a force of will. You have to suspect that Bernat's high tide represents the ability to do something tasty.
Right.
So on the one level, it's a surprise you don't just go, I tell you what, how about you don't do the high tide? I guess then he's still left with plenty more turns, so here we go. Time spiral. Martell will force, knowing that Bernat will certainly force right back. And what will he pitch? A thing. Presumably a time spiral.
Probably only needs.
A time spiral? He does that rather than a force. Right? What do you think?
Yeah, you don't want to. He certainly doesn't want to exile a force.
Oh, so you keep. So it has to be time spiral. That's all that's left because he has, unless he.
It is indeed time. It is indeed time spiral. Time.
Yeah.
Tom Martell has just picked it up.
Oh, he did exile force of will. So he kept time spiral and turnabout, but off we go again because now we're going to reload with 7 apiece.
Yeah, if he only puts, I mean, he's refilling Martell's hand, but what's the real likelihood of Martell getting even 2 forces and 2 blue cards to back him up?
I'm going to say 2 is the one where you feel unfortunate. Anything beyond that, you just have to shrug because it's so statistically unlikely.
Right.
3 force plus 3 blue cards plus a 7th card, highly unlikely.
Well, especially since Tom's not playing mono blue.
Yeah, and one you expect to have to play around. I mean, every time you time spiral, you go, I'm going to if I can allow myself to imagine that you have 1, I will play as if you have 1.
Right.
So.
Yeah, you also have to think about, as Director Rashad Miller has pointed out, Pact of Negation is viable. I don't believe Tom has one on his list.
But Bernat has the main. Yeah. So here we go again. Do we see any forces in Tom's hand? We do not. Don't think so. And Bernat is going to kick off phase 2 of what promises to be a lengthy turn with a bit of brainstorm action. And we just mentioned Pact of Negation. He's drawn into one of those and what looks like 2 duds in the sense of 2 land.
Tom Martell reaching over, helping him out with the storm count, I think.
Do you know, there doesn't seem to be a lot of action in Bernat's hand right now. I see a turnabout.
Again, if he doesn't...
I'm not sure. Yeah. That was stall mode.
Well, we talked about that yesterday. This is it's something that it's unlikely sometimes, but it's certainly a likely enough possibility that you don't get any gas on those 7 cards.
I mean, that's harsh because he drew 7 and then brainstormed. And Martell is going to lay it all out, and he's saying land, negation, turnabout, land, explore. That's a horrible draw. Given that that's the result of having brainstormed.
Yes.
That's hideous. Wow.
Yeah, I think Tom is not unhappy at this situation. He certainly was probably thinking there's some likelihood this game's over.
Yeah, and especially when he draws his 7 and there's no force.
Right.
So you're like, well, I'm basically at your mercy, which turns out to be nothing at all.
He takes the turnabout. Ponders self. We see Tom Martell swords of the plowshares in his hand. Gonna bet that's getting sided out.
So there's an intuition. And one of the things that Tom was talking about when he was with us here yesterday was that when you intuition for 3 copies of Lingering Souls,
Yeah.
there's some fairly saucy flashback action going on there.
Yes.
I thought I'd have this one, and then these other 2 as well. Inquisition of Kozilek. The hand destruction continues. Explore goes away. Bernat says, "Yeah, this is futile." I tried to go off. I saw 10 cards. None of them were remotely sufficient. That was grim from a Bernat point of view. You can see why Tom would be pleased with the way that game went.
So, effectively, 22 cards in Bernat's deck that are gonna draw something from the meditate.
Yeah.
The brainstorm, ponder, merchant scroll, which is gonna get him to draw
Tutor, yeah.
something. 24 if you count the cunning wishes.
Yep.
Preordained, the explorers or card draw.
Indeed.
And the Blue Sun Zenith, his kill spell.
Yep. Which, of course, he can use on himself and then subsequently in return get it back and use it.
So the odds of him not pulling something that's going to draw cards with after the brainstorm are pretty low.
Yeah, I mean, to go 10 cards deep and end up with essentially nothing. Wow.
Now, one of the things he has to hope is that he doesn't get unlucky enough for Martell to get that Blue Sun Zenith out early. If he doesn't have access to that, then he's got a time spiral to get it back in.
Sure.
So remember that game, both players went to 6.
Indeed.
Probably an advantage to Martell. But again, it really looks like, Bernat was unlucky in not getting... We need to get Frank Karsten to crunch those numbers again on what the likelihood of not drawing a draw spell is.
I'm going to settle with not very high.
Yes.
For now. Scott Vargas stopped playing away in his first match today. Remember, he's at 8-1 right now, sitting at table 3, and as you'd expect, part of the early morning crowd. I think we forget sometimes because we have a very privileged position. We deal on a daily basis with the best players in the world. There are a number of people who come to GPs, not solely, but a lot of the allure is to meet and actually see a Brian Kibler, a Louis Scott Vargas, a Shuhei Nakamura in the flesh. I had several people come up to me yesterday and say, "It's my first ever GP. I watch the coverage every week. We love what goes on," but it was just the idea that they're real and they're shuffling just like I shuffle, and they play their cards just the way I do. There was this real kind of connection between some of these guys and the best players in the world who are sitting out in front of us.
We've talked before about the enjoyment of watching this game being played in truly skilled hands. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing like standing over the shoulder of an LSV or a Brian Kibler or any number of these high-level pros and watching them play and seeing. And the players can, we can watch here on GG's Live because you can see their hands and you can see the lines of plays that they're taking, but we can't feel the zeitgeist surrounding the player, and we can't read the body language of his opponent. But if you're standing there live, You're standing right next to Todd Anderson right now, railbirding LSV.
Yeah.
You can feel the way the match is progressing, and you get a great sense of how things are going.
I really wanted Zeitgeist to be a card in Dark Ascension. I was very disappointed because, yeah, well, there's still time. Avacyn restored. Inquisition of Kozilek from Tom Martell.
2 Merchant Scrolls, a High Tide,
And a Giga Drowse and a Cunning Wish.
and a Cutting Wish.
So the Giga Drowse has come in. There were 2 in the sideboard for Bernat. So presumably that's the only one he brings in. He leaves 1 there for Cunning Wish.
Right.
So Giga Drowse storms out the opponent's lands, essentially. Lots of tapping action. And High Tide will go away thanks to the Inquisition of Kozilek. Crack a Scalding Tarn.
Now he probably gets the... No.
So he's going to cast Merchant Scroll.
Still not... I'm still not quite clear on why he's not getting the... Oh, Wasteland. He may fear the Wasteland.
So, Merchant Scroll does indeed get a High Tide. He did that in, technically the wrong order. It just goes and gets High Tide. That was from this Merchant Scroll over here, but we all knew what was going on. And of course, under High Tide, the penalty for losing a land is that much the greater.
Right.
You're losing 2 or sometimes 3. Martell with a permission-heavy hand looks like he's got double force. So he fetches up a jewel. It's one of the few matches. Playing against High Tide can be pretty scary because once you're in trouble, there's no way back. But one of the nice things from an opposing deck point of view is it's one of the few rounds you're going to play all weekend where you don't need to fear Wasteland for yourself, because there's just not enough room in the High Tide decks for Wastelands. It is a ton of islands, and in Michael Bernat's case, a couple of ways to make it explore. So Martell will brainstorm.
He's got permission, but he's got no pressure.
Sure. And in fact, it looks like it's just a single force in hand.
Giving the High Tide deck time to develop probably isn't the situation Tom wants to be in.
Because time is on its side, yes it is. Ponder. And where are they going? Top or bottom? Top.
Seems to like him. Nope.
Crack.
Didn't like him that much.
Yeah, yes, indeed. I liked one of them. Liked the first, didn't care about the others.
We see it was an island as he peeled it off.
To no one's surprise, Rob Doherty's still playing.
You talk about him like he's Dave Humphreys.
He is Dave Humphreys. Didn't you know?
No. There's nobody as deliberate as Dave Humphreys.
I don't know how they did so well, because their playtest sessions, they must have got through a game and a half.
I'm thinking, yeah, because...
Tom is... There's some talking going on here. Let's see if we can get a report on what actually is the case there.
Alright, yeah.
Magic players, why are you talking? That's what we want to know. Merchant Scroll again, from Bernat.
We know he's fetched 1 High Tide already.
No, couldn't find it through the first time. I'm going to go and get packed of negation.
And we saw Jason Ford win a game yesterday when his opponent forgot
Yes.
that a pact of negation had resolved.
But our viewers reminded everyone.
Yes.
Which was helpful.
Yeah,
Best use of pact of negation in Magic history, certainly at high-level play. Yelga Vigasma, Pro Tour Yokohama 2007, playing White Weenie with 0 blue mana sources in the deck. Attack for lethal, fog from the other side. Huh, pact of negation. Nope. Thank you, I win. Literally no way to pay for it. But it never mattered because he was never having another upkeep. So Intuition goes and gets Surgical Extraction, Surgical Extraction, Surgical Extraction. I'm not going to try and say that again.
It is 9:30 on Sunday morning.
I couldn't even do it at 3:30 on a Tuesday.
Again, Tom Martell's life total, not significant. So, Phyrexian mana,
I can pay that, I think. I can stretch to that whole 2 life.
Make this play a lot better. I know. This would not be my turn if that was not the rule.
yeah, if this, I mean, certainly, if this gets through,
It's not a happy place, is it?
Is Blue Sun Zenith? It's yes. But it looks like Tom's going after High Tide.
Awkward.
Perhaps he's worried. Well, there are still storm ways to win.
Yes. The gist of what's going on here is problems for Bernat. 1-0 down and about to see the signature card of the High Tide deck no longer part of the High Tide deck.
So we'll bring it. There's a lot of text on Surgical Extraction. Choose target card in the graveyard other than a basic land card.
Okay.
Search its owner's graveyard, hand, and library for any number of cards with the same name as that card and exile them. So that a High Tide being in the graveyard was the significant factor.
I know this is a simple one for many players, but beginner players certainly won't know this. Dual lands, they're in the graveyard. Can you target those with Surgical Extraction? It says a card other than a basic land card.
Yes, you may.
Right, so even though there are plains, which is a basic land, and a
Right.
forest, which is a basic
land type.
Right. Okay, so as long as it isn't
Basic
a
land.
plains, a forest, a swamp, an island, or a mountain,
Correct.
you can target it. So you could remove all the tundras from a deck,
For
for
example.
example. Okay.
If one were in the graveyard.
Yes. Yeah. So advantage Martell in more ways than one, both on the scoreboard and here in game 2. Brainstorm. Looks like he drew 3 actual cards rather than land.
One of them a time spiral.
Looks like there might have been a Flusterstorm in there. We'll see. As you said, there continues to be no pressure from Martell, but right now,
Well,
pretty much in control.
I think removing all the High Tides is a lot of pressure.
Okay. Certainly a threat.
Yeah.
Scott Vargas has finished his match. First one of the day. He has at least one loss to give coming into the day at 8-1.
Martell just going to work on attacking the hand. And then, of course, that Vendilion click is going to start putting pressure on Bernat's life total.
There's a lot of beat, actually, in a Vendilion click. People forget just how important that 3 is. It's a proper beat. So you see a Cunning Wish, Giga Drowse, Pact of Negation, Tom Martell, Kevin Dupre.
Soren Markov.
Time Spiral, Meditate.
Pact.
Yeah. Third card from the bottom. I ain't gonna take that as a flusterstorm. Someone will tell me if not, I'm sure. Pick them up one at a time. That'd be helpful. No such luck. So Click is in the house for Tom Martell. He's drawn into Lingering Souls for the first time in the match. He hasn't needed them thus far.
There's Caracas, which seems to go very nicely with Vendilion click.
Indeed. So Lingering Souls will add to the pressure. So a couple of moments ago, no onboard threat. Now 5. Bernat in any amount of trouble.
He's got no more than 3 turns. Probably Martell going to use some flashback on that Lingering Souls. Add up some pressure. Bernat doing some counting. He's going to try to get out of this right here and now.
So we're going to see if we can get a chat with Louis Scott Vargas at the end of this match. We spent some time with Tom Martell yesterday. We won't take up more of his time early this Sunday morning here in Indianapolis.
Desperation time for Michael Bernat. Preordain. I guess he figures Martell can't kill him in 2 turns. So he's just got to get into his deck. You know, his life total almost means nothing as well.
Sure.
Until he's down to the last one. Still a pretty desperate situation for Michael Bernat here.
Oh, yeah.
I sure hope we're not going to get Louis Scott Vargas in here to rub his nose in a match he just lost.
So Louis, off camera, you're busy losing and apparently not being any good at Magic the Gathering. Why are you so terrible? Do you think it's related to weight loss? But do you think that'll do is my opening question?
Right. Snapcaster Mage completely changes the math now at Bernat's end step, and this game's over.
Magic players, there are about 10 minutes left.
Remember, Martell's got an extra turn. There's 7 there. There's going to be 9 coming the following turn from the Lingering Souls.
Alas, the Indianapolis Colts fan has nobody manning the barricades.
You may not be proud of yourself for that.
Oh, Force Will. No, Force Will back the other way.
Okay, that's good.
And there's the handshake. Tom Martell wins 2-0 and moves to 10